War in Ukraine is still raging. The east is burning and the south is burning. Russian Federation troops bombard Ukrainian cities almost every day, either with missiles or artillery. The threat persists along the entire Russian-Ukrainian border. It is still too far from over. NATO and the U.S. are providing unprecedented assistance with heavy weapons. There's talk of transferring fighter jets and long-range missiles. But do we know the whole truth? What exactly is being transferred to the Ukrainian armed forces and in what quantities? Unidentified drones started infiltrating Russian territory and undermining strategically important targets inside Russia. And there are a lot of different incidents all along the front lines. What lessons can be learned from this war? What surprises did the biggest conflict in Europe since the end of World War II bring? David Petraeus has a lot to say, and today we're going to take a look at his thoughts on how the war is going in Ukraine. David Petraeus, former director of the CIA, shared his perspective on the war effort in Ukraine, stating that Russia's initial plans to topple Kyiv and install pro-Russian government were a disastrous miscalculation. They completely underestimated the capacity and capabilities of the Ukrainians and, frankly, of the leadership of their president, Petraeus said. Despite early victories in northern Ukraine, the Russian forces ultimately lost the battle for Kyiv and several other important cities. Then, the Ukrainians launched a very impressive counter-offensive this past fall, where they pushed down along the border of Russia and Ukraine in the east, south of Kharkiv, and liberated a fair amount of what Russia took at the outset, Petraeus explained. The situation has been relatively static on the front lines in recent months as Ukraine works to regenerate its forces with the help of the U.S. and other Western support, including over $24 billion in arms and ammunition since February 24th. The question now, according to Petraeus, is whether the U.S. and its allies will provide additional capabilities that could be game changers for Ukraine. Petraeus pointed to the high-mobility artillery rocket system, HIMARS, as an example of a game-changing capability already provided by the U.S. with its precision munition capable of hitting targets accurately from up to 50 miles away. He questioned whether Ukraine would receive the rent of the munition that provides double that range, as well as tanks and other support. Despite the challenges, Petraeus praised the sheer will to fight of the Ukrainian people, particularly those in uniform, saying that they had exceeded Russia's expectations. They completely underestimated the capacity and capabilities of the Ukrainians, he reiterated. He praised the war effort in Ukraine, stating that it has been pretty disastrous for Russia. In an interview, Petraeus noted that Russia had underestimated the capacity and capabilities of the Ukrainian people and their leadership, which has been positively Churchillian. He commended President Zelensky and the Ukrainian military for their sheer will to fight and for their impressive counteroffensive last fall, which saw them push down along the border of Russia and Ukraine and capture a fair amount of territory. After he noted that the situation on the front lines has been relatively static in recent months as the Ukrainians attempt to regenerate or generate additional forces, aided by the colossal amount of U.S. arms, ammunition, and other materials, he believes the question now is whether the U.S. and the West will provide additional capabilities that could be game changers for Ukraine, such as additional counter-drone capabilities and high-end drones like the Predator. Petraeus hopes that Germany would ultimately provide Leopard 2 tanks on top of the tanks being provided by the U.S., France, and the U.K. Petraeus also commended on the devastatingly dangerous Iranian-provided drone swarms mixed in with cruise missiles from Russia that have done so much damage to Ukrainian infrastructure. He believes that additional capabilities are needed to counter this threat. Petraeus thinks that the provision of the high-mobility artillery rocket system has been a game-changer for Ukraine, with its precision munition that can hit a dinner table-sized target accurately out to about 50 miles. He hopes that Ukraine will get the rent of the munition that provides double that range and other specific capabilities. Petraeus also commented on the horrendous losses that Russia has sustained in the war, estimating that they've lost probably 8 times the losses they sustained in nearly 10 years of war in Afghanistan in just 10 or 11 months. He noted that Putin needs to realize that the war is unsustainable for Russia and that the West needs to do everything it can to hasten the day when he realizes that on both the battlefield and on the home front, where the economic, financial, and personal sanctions are beginning to bite harder now than the export controls. Retired General and former CIA Chief David Petraeus shared his thoughts on the war effort in Ukraine, including his belief that Ukraine doesn't have the right to exist as a separate nation and should be part of Russia. However, Petraeus acknowledged that he may be wrong on the point and stated that the focus should be on providing it through actions. While cyber warfare has been a significant feature of modern warfare, Petraeus believes that the rise of robots and algorithms will transform warfare in a much more substantial way. This shift will have a greater impact than what is currently being seen in Ukraine, where the majority of the hardware being used is the same as what Petraeus encountered as a major in Germany during the Cold War. The kind of stuff that we prepared to face when I was a major in Germany, where we were intent on defending the inner German border that was before the wall came down and before West and East Germany were reunified, Petraeus explained. You see, the same tanks, the same armored fighting vehicles, the same artillery, and so forth. Despite his views on Ukraine, Petraeus recognizes the importance of continued efforts in cyber warfare and the integration of new technologies. The rise of the robots, increasingly operating based not just on remote pilots, but by algorithms, will absolutely transform warfare, Petraeus stated. While Petraeus may hold controversial views on Ukraine's right to exist as a separate nation, his insights on the future of warfare and the importance of embracing new technologies are valuable considerations for military strategists and policymakers alike. According to Petraeus, the arrival of these munitions, particularly the guided missile launch rocket system round for the high-mobility artillery rocket system, has had a revolutionary impact on the battlefield. With a range of up to 80 kilometers and the ability to land on a target the size of a dinner table, the round has enabled Ukraine to precisely target Russian headquarters, fuel depots, ammo storage points, troop assembly areas, and barracks from up to 70 miles away from the front lines. However, Petraeus also warns that the use of precision munitions could potentially become even more devastating in the future. With advancements in drones, surveillance, and reconnaissance technology, modern battlefields could see the deployment of much more capable and powerful munitions with vastly longer ranges and greater precision. What can be seen can be hit. What can be hit can be killed, says Petraeus, cautioning that anything above ground, including large platforms at sea with a lot of sailors and other modern warfare equipment, could become targets for these precise munitions. While elaborate defenses may exist for such platforms, Petraeus stresses that the munitions deployed against them are very capable and precise. Applying these tactics in the greater Indo-Pacific region, for instance, could have far-reaching consequences for the balance of power in the region. As such, Petraeus urges caution and careful consideration when it comes to the deployment and use of precision munitions in modern warfare. The victory of Ukraine in information warfare had a significant impact on the economy. Almost 400 out of the 500 companies withdrew from the Russian economy, not due to legal obligations or sanctions, but because conducting business in Russia was no longer considered favorable. The kind of geopolitical cancellation has far-reaching consequences, not only for the Russian economy, but also for the global economic and political landscape. This outcome would be one of the most consequential effects of the Ukraine war, not only for the future of warfare on the battlefield, but also for decision-making about the war itself. According to the IMF, the first major conventional conflict of the 21st century in Europe took place between two countries, Ukraine and Russia, which were then ranked as the 9th and 56th biggest economies globally. Nonetheless, it caused significant disruptions in various sectors, including energy markets and supply chains, not only in the conflict zone, but also worldwide. As a result, Russia was forced to resort to recycling microchips from old refrigerators, while altered grain prices jeopardized stability in nations as distant as Asia and Africa. And mainly, according to Petraeus, this underscores one of the most pressing issues currently being debated in major capitals such as Washington, D.C. and Beijing. It is not only a matter of reshaping military strategies and technology to incorporate the lessons learned from Ukraine. It is also a question of rethinking the interdependence between national and economic security and the future of warfare. Are you still here? Well, thanks, mate. Feel free to like and subscribe to this video and share it, and we'll see you in the next one.